Hello everyone, Sarah Moyd here, and today's video is called Freedom Equals Remembering Your Innocence, and it's a totally free gift. I'd like to start by pointing out what it says in 2 Peter 1:9. And after Peter listing a long list of good qualities and characteristics, he says that if we are lacking in any of those qualities, it is because we have forgotten our innocence, for our past sins have been washed away. Another version says that we are oblivious that our old sinful life has been wiped off the books. I'd just like to remind you that this is a healing process, and it is not a good or bad, right or wrong process. We have been separated from the presence of God because of the brokenness in this world. And if we think back to the Garden of Eden, we might think about how there was the tree of life and there was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And I'm not trying to get all religious here. I'm just trying to give some explanations that might help make more sense. God said that it was okay for them to eat from the tree of life. But when they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they started making judgments about themselves and others and things and circumstances, and they started to feel shame. Our innocence comes as a free gift from God, and He wants us to know that. It's not about us being able to keep the law perfectly or some kind of code perfectly. If it was up to that, then we would all be screwed. So, thus, Romans 8 says there is no condemnation in Christ. And if we experience condemnation, we might want to start looking at it as growth opportunities for faith, good character, spiritual understanding, alert discipline, passionate patience, reverent wonder, warm friendliness, and generous love. We are not bad trying to get good. If we fall short in these areas, we have forgotten who we are, and we need to remember our innocence. We need to remember the promises God gave us. We need to remember what God did for us. In the book of Joshua, chapter 5, verse 8 through 12, the Israelites are getting ready to pass over into the promised land, but they are all circumcised. And that is symbolic of the flesh being removed. And they had to heal and rest before they entered the promised land. So hopefully that helps convey to you that when we are going through this process and learning to rest in our promised land, that it is a healing process. It isn't about us being good or bad, right or wrong. When we have joined ourselves with God, or Jesus, I believe, then we don't have to worry about fighting all of our battles and just being self-reliant. That same chapter goes on to talk about, as Joshua is getting closer to entering the promised land, he sees an angel or a warrior coming along, and it's Jesus. It's a prototype of Jesus. It's the angel of the Lord's armies. And Joshua is scared, and he asks him, "Are you for us or against us?" And Jesus says, "Neither." Basically, he says, "Don't worry, but you're thinking about the wrong thing. You join yourself to me, and I'll take care of things. Just trust me, and you'll enter that promised land." So I encourage you to do that. And it's easier said than done, but well worth the while. So, again, I'm just wanting to remind you that freedom comes from remembering your innocence. And isn't that great news? Instead of thinking that if you are not showing good character or understanding or discipline or patience or friendliness or unconditional love, it's not because you're bad. It's because you have some more healing to do. You need to remember who you are as a child of God, and God is growing your faith to help you remember. And that is why it's so important that we develop those habits of setting aside some time each day for prayer and meditation. Just like we talked about, God is always there, but we have the ability to forget. The same with his promises. His promises are the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, but we have the ability to forget. So we need to remind ourselves of that. If that seems like you're wasting your time, I get it. We live in a fast-paced world, and there's a lot to do, and there are a lot of responsibilities. However, think about how you just spin your wheels and how you may spend a lot of time focusing on things that don't do anything but cause you more anxiety and more frustration. So if you can, I've heard it said, and I believe this because it was from a credible source, that if we spend 5 minutes in the morning before we do anything else on prayer and meditation, it greatly decreases the likelihood that we will make a mistake that we can't get through the rest of the day. I think that's true. I think it's worth the effort. It's worth trying. It's worth the risk. It's worth 5 minutes. But anyway, so another thing I would like to say, and then I'm going to let you go, is that we have heard so much about the word character defects. And I like to say, I would rather say it like that we have characteristics, and they aren't good or bad or right or wrong, but we can misuse them when we're hurting or we're afraid. And then they can cause us more harm and harm to others. And hopefully that outlook on what character defects means will help you deal with this condemnation thing and help you understand that this is a healing process, not a get good process. It's about us remembering who we are. There is something called A Course in Miracles, and one person who teaches from that shares often that when you've been hurt by someone or someone else has been hurt by you, it's because they've forgotten who they are. And I believe that lines straight up with what we've been talking about with identity and the things we're talking about here and the things that we're talking about with wrong thinking holding us captive and right thinking setting us free. So again, I encourage you to awaken to these things. Do your part to help nurture the right thinking so that you can remember your innocence and that you can remember all the benefits of belonging to God and being his child and live by faith in those things. And I would bet that as you practice this more and more and you renew your mind to the truth of your identity and his benefits for you and your inheritance and all that includes, that you will find yourself being more developed in these good qualities and characteristics that we thought we should be able to accomplish on our own. And that itself will set you free. Bye.